Some places in the world have started having in-person Pokemon events, and I can't wait for this to be a regular occurrence. Hey everyone, Nick from Untitled TCG, and today we are talking about playing Pokemon in person. And before we go any further, I have to say I do not know when you'll be able to play Pokemon in person. It's really going to depend on where you live, your individual country, state, city guidelines, and what your individual local card stores feel comfortable doing. So keep that in mind, that there are still restrictions for COVID, but they are starting to get lifted. And I like to think I'm a credible source for this because in real life, like, my day job is as a scientist. I am a medical researcher, and I host a science comedy podcast with my wife, and we've been covering COVID since January 2020, before it really became a thing here in the United States. So I know a lot about this stuff. Keep in mind, there are changes to the CDC guidelines. If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask or social distance indoors or outdoors. There are, of course, exceptions to that rule, but we're not getting into that. We're going to be talking about Pokemon. If you want to learn more, I guess go check out my podcast. Links in the episode description. So anyway, Pokemon in person is something that I have not done in 20 years. The first Pokemon tournament I played in used base set cards. Like, I remember my deck having a base set Chansey and Hitmonchan, and I actually managed to win at 10 years old a local tournament. There wasn't anything big. There was maybe like 15 to 20 people there, but hey, 10 years old, I was beating 15, 16-year-old kids and all that kind of stuff. So it was really cool, and I had a ton of fun playing. This is back when you got books. You had like an actual book, and when you competed, you would get stamps in that book. And when you reached a number of stamps or points, you would earn a gym badge, and it was pretty cool. I thought it was fun. Anyway, let's pretend you've never gone to a Pokemon event in real life, that this is, you started a hobby during the pandemic, or you picked it back up during the pandemic. Maybe you went from being a collector to a player for the first time, and you're like, what do I need to know and do during these events? Well, the first thing is, let's assume you already found an event, right? You found an event, you registered online, or you registered in person, however you did it, and now you just need to get your things together in order to play. What do we need in order to play? The first thing you need is obviously a deck, right? You need to have a deck to play with, and you can play any deck you want. Obviously, you have to be mindful of the format. So if you were to register for a standard format tournament today, at the day, time of this recording, which is May 18th, you can use anything from Sun and Moon Team Up to Sword and Shield Battle Styles. Any card in those sets are legal at this moment. Let's pretend your deck has all of those cards. It fits the right format, and you're good to go. Cool. Now what you need to do is get sleeves for your cards. Sleeves are really important because they do two things. They not only protect your card, but they help keep you or your opponent honest. They prevent cheating, because if you take this card out of the sleeve and I make a little mark on the back of this card and I don't have a sleeve, maybe one spot is filled in or has a scratch or a pen mark or something. Now I know when this card is at the top of my deck, I can look for a mark that I might have put on it and say, oh, I know that this card is really Urshifu VMAX, so I know I'm going to be drawing something I need or something I don't need or whatever. So I don't care if I discard the top cards of my deck because I don't need this card. Now I know to put energies on whatever the situation is. I don't need to belabor the point. You understand that you can cheat by marking cards. When you have a sleeve on it, it keeps you from marking cards, and like I said, it protects your cards. Some of these are valuable. If you're playing a Rapid Strike Urshifu deck, some of those cards are valuable, and you don't want them to get messed up and scratched from the tables and people picking up your cards to read the effect, or dice rolling on them, coin flips, whatever is happening. You don't want your cards to get messed up. So when it comes to sleeves, something to keep in mind is different tournaments will have different rules as far as sleeves. It's really important to know that you typically cannot put 2 sleeves on a single card, so I can't put this, like, let's say it's a really valuable card, I can't put it in like those clear penny sleeves and then sleeve it in this, because it changes the thickness, and it's like marking your card in a different way. I can feel it's a little different than the others. It might look a little different than the others, so you can't double sleeve in official Pokemon tournaments, and you usually can't have artwork on the back of your sleeves because they can be marked. If I know what the artwork of a card is, but my opponent's never seen the artwork before, they wouldn't know if something is marked, and it's easy to mark something, slightly discolor it. So usually solid color sleeves are either required or at the very least highly preferred, and it's what I would recommend you getting. You can get sleeves with artwork from, like, directly from Pokemon. Official Pokemon sleeves that have artwork are acceptable, but I still recommend getting plain solid color sleeves, just so no one can accuse you of anything. I know it sounds crazy, it sounds paranoid, but people do cheat, unfortunately. People will try to, call a judge over or slow play or do something and try to, like, accuse you of cheating and marking cards because maybe they're gonna lose and they don't want to. It's wild, and you hope that it never happens, and you expect better of people in the community, but those things do unfortunately happen. If your sleeve is solid color, no one can accuse you of anything. So moving on to the next thing we need in order to play. You don't need it, but I would definitely have one, and that is a deck box. Now, this is a very large deck box. If you were to buy a box of, say, 100, well, the microphone's there. If you were to buy a box of 100 sleeves, say from Dragon Shield, who is not a sponsor, just I love their product, you can fit 60 sleeved cards in this box. So you could have, all of your entire deck in this box. In fact, I have a deck in this box. This is a full 60 card deck. They're all sleeved, and I could even throw a few extra sleeves in this deck, or in this box, just in case something happens to one of my sleeves on my deck. You could use something like this. They do have very cheap plastic, $1, $3, $5 deck boxes that you can buy if you don't like the way this looks, or you want something that's a little more custom or personal. But my recommendation is to get a deck box that actually has a drawer for your damage counters and your dice, because that's something else you're going to need, and we'll talk about that in a second. So if you open this up, it has a spot. Can you stay open? It has a spot for your deck, so this comes out and you put your deck in, and then it has a second drawer for your damage counters and your dice and your markers and all that kind of stuff that you may need and will need in a tournament. So Pokemon Trading Card Game Online app, you don't need damage counters because the game calculates it for you. But when you play in person, you absolutely need damage counters so that you and your opponent can keep track of how much damage your Pokemon has taken over the course of the game. You also need a regular die, and you also should have damage counter markers and an extra coin and all this kind of stuff, or status condition markers, all that kind of stuff. There's things that you need to play. If you are playing in a format where tag teams and GX moves are a thing, then you do want a GX marker so that you can flip it over and show that your GX move has been used for the game, because you don't want your opponent accusing you of saying you used your GX move earlier, and you say, no, I didn't. You have your marker to remind everyone and keep everyone honest. And you also, don't want your opponent using theirs twice, so you can keep track a little bit easier. I'll put all that stuff away. I'll get that stuff later. It's not a big deal. This is called a flippin' tray from Ultimate Guard. It's great. I have 2 of these, one for each deck that me and my wife use. So deck box, damage counters, all that kind of stuff also needed. There's a couple of other things that you should be bringing with you to an online, or to an in-person event rather, and that is also a playmat. You want a playmat And also, I would recommend putting the playmat, if you care about it, in a tube. These tubes are super cheap. They're like $6 or $7. And you basically just roll up your playmat, shove it in, and it will keep your playmat safe. This is great if you maybe spent a little bit of money on a playmat. Maybe you got a custom playmat. Maybe you got a playmat you know, did well in a tournament and you got a playmat, you were given one as a prize. You want to keep that in good condition, and you don't want it to get messed up in your bag. So a tube, really helpful. Playmat is also really helpful because while your cards are in sleeves, the tables are still really dirty and they could be all scratched up, and you don't want anything happening to your cards. So you put the playmat down to kind of protect your little area and put everything down on. It's I highly recommend the playmat. It's not needed. You can get by through a tournament without a playmat, without having a playmat tube. Something I would recommend, but if you're tight on cash, or you just, you know, maybe it's your first event and you're like, I don't want to buy all this stuff if I don't like playing in person, then yeah, maybe go to the first event, skip the playmat. But, you know, like I said, I can't recommend it enough. The other thing you're going to want is your trade binder. So when you go, people are going to be buying and selling cards, and you're going to, you know, they're going to see these golden single strike energies, and they're like, oh man, I really want that. What are you willing to give for? How much do you want for it? Maybe some tournaments will actually have vendors there who will buy cards from you. You know, maybe if you're looking to make some trades, I don't suggest bringing your entire collection. Only bring the cards that you are willing to trade or to part with, because there's no point in, I mean, unless you're really just trying to flex on people, there's really no point in bringing a bunch, like those ETB boxes back there, those are all filled with cards. I'm not going to bring all those to a tournament because it's extra stuff I have to carry and keep track of. By the way, you got to keep track of your stuff. You can't just leave my, you know, playmat and my binder of cards and my deck box with all the stuff. And I can't just leave it and be like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom and watch this, unless you really trust the person you're asking to watch it. People steal. It's sad and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. You need to protect your stuff, so don't bring more than you can keep your eyes on. I know I'm kind of going a little fast and I'm throwing a bunch of stuff out there. These are just quick recommendations and tips for going to play online. God, I keep saying online because for like the past year, that's all we've been able to do. But when you're going to play in person, you don't want to, you can do whatever you want. I do not like to bring, you know, some people like the small binders, and they'll bring like 4 or 5 of them. I don't like to do that, because if you have 4 or 5 binders on the table, it's really easy for someone to swipe one without you maybe noticing, because there's just a stack of them. Whereas if you have one bigger binder, yeah, it might be a little bigger, a little more clunky, whatever, but it's way easier to keep track of because it's just one item. So keep your stuff in your bag. You know, you should obviously have a book bag that all this will go into. Keep your stuff in your book bag until you need it, and keep an eye on your book bag. Keep it on your person at all times. I would also recommend bringing some snacks, maybe like a Gatorade or some water or something. Maybe, you know, like don't bring a thing of sushi with you, maybe, but you know, maybe like a, you know, granola bar, protein bar, something like that, something, because you can be at these events for quite a while, and they might have food there, or there might be food nearby that you can go and buy, but maybe you don't have the opportunity, maybe you don't have the money, whatever happens, you should be prepared. You don't want to be sitting there hungry playing a game, because it's going to mess with you mentally. I promise you. That's actually a really good segue into the final topic for this video, and that is being competitive in person versus being competitive online. When I'm playing online, I talk even out loud or to myself, or I have like different facial expressions, or, you know, like you give your opponent money, you're like, oh God, why? Like, every time I get like, you do not want to do that in an in-person tournament. One, because you don't want to look crazy, and 2, because you don't want your opponent to know that they messed you up. You want them to think that you are totally fine with what they're doing, and everything they do does not faze you. You need a poker face. You need a strong poker face. And you might be saying, Nick, you haven't played Pokemon in person in 20 years. What do you know about this? I might not have been playing Pokemon for 20 years, but I have sure of hell been competing in sports and events in person forever. I mean, I started playing sports seriously in high school, and every sport I've ever done was one-on-one. It was me and one other person. I really didn't play a lot of team sports. Yeah, I played hockey for a little while, but whatever. I did sword fighting, Western fencing, where it's just you and your opponent and everyone else watching. I'd been training martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for 10 years almost. I've gone and competed. You can't see because it's buried, but there's a gold medal from a tournament that I competed in on that bookcase. And you get out there and it's just you and your opponent. And I do a lot of sparring and a lot of whatever. When you get hit, someone hits you in the chest, they hit you in the ribs, whatever, it hurts, but you cannot show it. You can't let your opponent think that they got to you. You know, if they catch you in something, you can't look surprised, you can't look upset, you can't look frustrated. You have to keep fighting. Solid face, game face, let's do this. The same thing, it's sounds crazy to compare fighting, like real fighting, like another human being trying to hurt you, and playing Pokemon cards as like having to have the same mentality. But any type of competitive environment, you need that strong will that this doesn't bother me, I will find a way around this, do whatever you gotta do. It is a huge aspect of competing, is the mental game, not talking yourself out of a game, talking yourself into a game. I can win this, I can beat this, I don't care that they just moneyed the best hand I could have possibly had. I'm gonna do something and I'm gonna figure this out. It is critical when you're playing in person because your opponent's gonna be looking at you. They're gonna be reading your face, or they're gonna be trying to read your face. And if you're sitting there stone cold killer, they're not gonna know what to do. If my opponent, you know, I see them kind of shuffle in the hand and they look at me and I'm looking really nervous, like they're gonna boss or they're gonna Marnie, they're going to do it. And it's inevitable, really. As a good player will be able to read their opponent. It's a little harder when you're playing online because you don't have that interaction or that presence, and you kind of have to play based on how they play and what they're doing. But when you're playing in person, it is very, very different, and I can't wait for it. I love that kind of stuff. And you're gonna be like, Nick, but I get nervous and whatever. Good. Nerves are good. In real life, when you're fighting, and this is really the only thing I can equate it to, when you're out there competing, there's another human being trying to hurt you. Nerves are good. They keep you alive. They keep you going. They keep you sharp. The same thing applies to Pokemon. When you're nervous, it's good. It keeps you aware of what's happening. You can't be too nervous where you are making mistakes and you can't act. There's a difference, right? You can't let the fear overtake you, but you need some anxiety, a little bit of adrenaline to keep you in the fight. And the last thing I'll say is don't quit the match. There are so many times online where my opponent has had a really bad start, and they just scoop real fast. When I say scoop, I mean they just concede the game almost immediately. There have been times where I didn't even play a card out of my hand. They flipped over our starting Pokemon. They saw what I was playing and they just conceded the match. Maybe they had a terrible hand. Maybe they know my deck was a really bad matchup for them. Whatever it was, they just instantly quit. Don't do that in person tournaments, especially for a tournament that you paid to enter. Why? Because your opponent might mess up. They might not see what you see, and they might make a mistake, or they might not make the best move. They might make a good move, but it might not be the best move. So you might see a way for your opponent to win, or a way for your opponent to really mess with you, but they don't know that. They don't always see what you see or what you know because they can't see your hand or whatever. So play the match. Let them make the mistakes, and then you capitalize on that. That's when you really take advantage, and that's going to get in their head. They're going to sit there and say, oh man, I made a huge mistake, and it's going to take them down a bit. And when it happens to you, you can't be the one to get down on yourself and say, oh, that's it, I'm going to lose this. Just keep going. Just keep playing. You paid to be there. Be there. You don't, like I said, you don't know what your opponent's going to do. You don't know what they're going to draw. You don't know what you're going to draw next. So you might as well just keep going and get the experience. Even if you lose every single match that you get paired in, just keep playing. You're there. You planned on spending the day there. No one goes into a tournament thinking, I can't wait to lose first round. Like, no, you're like, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to win this thing. And if you walk in with that mentality, even if you lose every single match, that's fine. Because every single opportunity, every single loss is an opportunity for you to have learned or gained something. It's a little bit of experience, right? It doesn't matter if you lose. It does not matter if you win. As long as you got out there, you tried, and you learned something. So the next tournament, you're more prepared. If you don't believe me, ask any championship player, ask any world-class athlete, ask any top player in Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't care. They will all tell you the same thing. I will bet money on it. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, learned something, maybe got a little motivation for when Pokemon tournaments start opening up in your area. I can't wait to see you guys out on the tables. If you enjoyed this video, don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you never miss another video. And if you really want to help with the channel, leave a comment down below telling me if you're excited for in-person play or if you're more of an online player. And you can also hit the thumbs up button because that tells YouTube that people should be watching this video, and I think this is a good time to start talking about in-person play. So I want as many people as possible to see this video. And if you absolutely love this channel and you're like, I need more of this guy in my life, well, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links in the description below. But like I said, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.